What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Despite reassurances by President Joe Biden himself that he had no intention of dropping out of the presidential race, despite plummeting poll numbers, anemic approval ratings, and a disastrous debate performance on June 27th against Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump, it was reported yesterday, a bombshell report, that those closest to President Biden were anonymously reporting that he was going to drop out as soon as this weekend. Then it was being reported that he would drop out more than likely that the president was going to drop out this weekend, most likely making the announcement Sunday. And it was being reported that he would not endorse his vice president, Kamala Harris. Now come reports that Biden's family, feeling enraged by what they consider betrayal by Democratic leaders, are now finally having discussions with President Biden about dropping out of the race and how to do it. I guess what they would consider to be in a respectful and a dignified manner. But this is the bombshell. A third United States Democratic senator, Martin Heinrich, has joined the call for Joe Biden, their party leader, to step down. New Mexico Senator Mark Heinrich today became the third Democratic member of the upper chamber to call for President Biden to drop out of the 2024 race, joining 26 other lawmakers. He urged the president to, quote, pass the torch, without suggesting that Kamala Harris, of course, pick up that torch. He said, quote, Joe Biden is one of the most accomplished presidents in modern history. However, this moment in our nation's history calls for a focus that is bigger than any one person. While the decision to withdraw from the campaign is President Biden's alone, I believe it is in the best interest of the country for him to step aside. By passing the torch, he would secure his legacy as one of our nation's greatest leaders and allow us to unite behind a candidate who can best defeat Donald Trump and safeguard the future of democracy. He joins Democratic Senators John Tester of Montana and Senator Pete Welch of Vermont, who have also urged Biden to withdraw, along with 24 House Democrats, 4 of whom came forward on Friday with statements calling for the president to step down. So what was once just a few isolated cases are now 27 Democratic lawmakers. And the numbers are more than likely going to keep growing. So 27, that's roughly, I'm trying to do the math here. Is that close to 10% of all Democratic lawmakers? It's about 220 in the House, 50-something in the Senate. So that's 270. So that's 10% of all the Democratic lawmakers that have now come out and have publicly asked for Joe Biden to step down. That includes former President Barack Obama. That includes, according to reports, Bill and Hillary Clinton. So this is, in my opinion, I feel like Joe Biden does not want to step aside. He does not want to, but he must, because he thought that this is something that he could fix. This is something that was a stutter step that he could sort of command the party, show strength, and get everybody back in line. But the longer he goes, the more dissension grows, and the more you have a disunit and disgruntled and disjointed Democratic Party. And history shows that whenever you have a party not totally united for one particular candidate, usually that candidate loses. Now, Donald Trump in 2020 had a lot of things going against him. I mean, he had the pandemic, you had a worldwide global economic catastrophe where I think $17 trillion were lost in the world economy. But going back to George H.W. Bush, remember, many conservatives in the Republican Party were not satisfied with Bush. They didn't think that his administration was implementing the proper conservative, quote unquote, Reagan conservative philosophies. Remember, in 1992, Pat Buchanan became a personification of this conservative outcry, and he got 40% of the vote in New Hampshire primary against Bush. And remember, he gave that scathing speech in the Republican National Convention. It was supposed to be a speech that was supposed to unify the Republican Party, but he actually created more division and showed that the Republican Party still was not totally united. You can then go back to 1976. Remember, Gerald Ford, who succeeded Nixon when he was president after Watergate, barely won a nomination as an incumbent against Ronald Reagan. And Reagan gave a speech at the convention. We had many Ford delegates wishing that they had voted for Reagan, and the Republican Party wasn't very united because Ford was not seen as a true conservative. The party was shifting to the right. Ford lost to Carter. Hubert Humphrey, we know about the division in that race. He lost. Matter of fact, Hubert Humphrey was probably the last true liberal to run for the presidency that had a legitimate shot at winning. I don't want to go too far into that. That's the point I'm trying to make. The Democratic Party is in disarray, and if they want to have any shot at winning, they got to remove the stench of this Biden. When I say stench, I mean the loser stench. They got to remove the stench of Biden and, by extension, Kamala. Because if there's any candidate that's going to be worse than Joe Biden, it's Kamala. So, in my opinion, they're probably better off going with a ticket, maybe, even though I still have my doubts whether they'll beat Trump this year. I think the strongest ticket they can put out there is probably somebody like Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer. I think that would probably solidify traditional blue states at the very least. So that'd probably give them at least 230 electoral votes, and you just have to make a play for the states that are swing states. But anybody else, especially if it's Joe or Cam, the election is going to be Trump's, in my opinion. So this might be a historic weekend when it comes to Joe Biden. We'll have to wait and see. But tell me what you guys think. At least all the reports are indicating that he's going to drop out.